Good you're all here. I've been informed that in this webinar we have people from every continent at the moment, so that's really cool. Thank you for spending your time. EXIN asked me to do a talk on the trends in 2018, what we see coming. So my idea is that I just give you a little background and a little, my idea on Agile and vision. And then I will go into the details on what I think that's not only trend but a necessity in 2018 and on. And if you have any kind of question, feel free to ask. If it's too many, we just don't get there. But we'll see what happens, agile as we are all together, right? So first, for me, I would like to state what for me agile really is. Agile for me is an interaction concept that has come from the need to be able to deliver better business value in an earlier stage with a better internal quality. And the better business value is derived from the fact that so many, let's say, projects or any kind of delivery that was development that people were trying to do was going not exactly as the client hoped for, and not bringing what the client needs. And we have seen companies going bankrupt with huge projects and nothing getting out of there. And the fact that you don't get the right stuff and you get it too late is, for business-wise, very, very damaging. And the other one is that under the hood, the quality of products over time has not always been the way it should be. Now, for me, starting in the mid-90s, the focus was explicit on business value, making a client happy. And what we have seen over the last, let's say, 25 years is that let's say, the pace of innovation and technology development, the need to be able to respond becomes even faster, and your delivery cycles are shorter, because the moment you go into development, it takes just a little bit of time, and then changes will be there, and you have to be able to respond. If I look at my life today, I spend a lot of time, for example, on airports, and when I need stuff, very often I just use my cell phone, my smartphone, and I order things online. And it's very simple. If I go online and if I want to find something, and the solution that I'm using, the app that I'm using, is not responding well, easily I go to the next one to get what I need. So better business value, it has to be there, because if you're not there, your competition will be there. Doing the right thing, because if it doesn't, the right thing doesn't do the right thing, you will lose your clients anyway. And if it's full of errors and problems, you lose again, you lose your clients. So this is what for me Agile is for. The most important aspect of Agile for me is the interaction between all stakeholders. What you try to do is you try to avoid delay in any kind of situation. And a delay can be from the fact that you're going through silos, through steps, and you want to make sure that people that are involved in all the sequential steps, that you bring them together to make sure that people are not waiting in long heavyweight change processes, waiting on each other for reviews and feedback, and sending documents and emails up and down. So information at the source in this situation is very important. Not only the information at the source, but it's also making sure that when you bring people together, you have people that are allowed to make decisions, that are well skilled and trained, and that they can see with the objectives of the work they do, that together they can find the best solution. Now, the point is that in the mid-90s, when I started working this way, we had to make a lot of effort to convince people, clients, and teams to work this way. And if you look at the history of Agile, let's say after writing the manifesto in 2001, where we all were sort of, trying to find common ground, 17 people, 13 different practices and methods, and trying to find common ground. So what do we want to achieve? And then we came to, okay, this is where you really, go for better business value, delivering, making sure that it's there on time. Now, what happened after writing the manifesto, if I look in a historical perspective, overall, Agile has taken huge steps in the area of IT. My personal background is in what I call full delivery. So it means that you have all disciplines, for example, education and training, and software development, and data conversion, and technical implementation, administrative organization. We all had it together working on the same product and the same delivery, which is for me what I call full delivery, focusing on business value to serve the corporate environment. But somehow we got into a situation where Agile was going into the world of IT. So I think I see at the moment we have 126 people, and I think we all see the situation where you in an IT department, you were working in an agile way. You do Scrum, you do extreme programming, you have a project management framework, Crystal, adaptive, Lean, Kanban. Whatever you do work in a different way. You use agile methods and practices from wherever you can, and you think they can help. And at the same time, it's just the bubble of IT. And in the bubble of IT, we do the best we can. But the moment that we have done our work and we are sort of ready to go to production, we discover there's a whole lot going on in the rest of the organization. So, for example, I see a lot of environments where I come where people say, okay, once we have done the delivery, then we have sprints for tests, or then we hand over to operations so they can check, or we hand over to marketing or to the legal department. And the point is, if you work this way, you might be delivering better and faster from the IT perspective, but as a whole, you have an issue. And the issue is that going into delivery, going into production, where you really can deliver faster, what serves the organization by delivering better business value in an earlier stage, you don't get there. It still takes you months and months. I see recently another country in Europe where they said, we work agile for 5 years now, and I just simply asked, what is your release cycle? And they said 12 months. So here we have people, they are working in an agile way, they do all the rituals, but still, they have this very huge release cycle. And people might say, yeah, that's because of, all sort of, legal aspects where we have to comply to and it needs check. Now, the question is, how can you deliver better business value earlier, having everyone in there and still maintaining the quality so that you have a situation where you can really deliver the better business value in an earlier stage to the benefit of your own organization and most likely your clients or your end users or whatever you call them. To be able to do this, you really need to change your organization. What I very often talk about at the moment is the paradigm shift. If you really go into Agile Working and you really want to do end-to-end delivery in sprints, it means that you have all disciplines, and I mean all disciplines, in sprints together, making sure that during the sprint you build acceptance, and at the end of the sprint you have the acceptance and you can go into delivery. What you're looking for, right? Because you want to go without delay, you want to go into production as fast as you can with a high level of quality. Doing this, it means you have to change the way you work, availability of people, and you have to change the bureaucracy. And those are embedded in the paradigms. The paradigms are responsible for bureaucracy. They are responsible for personal development plans. They are responsible for individual bonuses. And individual bonuses in an agile environment are very difficult, because in an agile environment, you work in a team perspective, because together you deliver the required business value. Now the point is, how do you get there? And this, I call this corporate agile. And there's, let's say, you have the phrase of scaling, where you go from a small to a big group of people that's working agile. Corporate for me means all disciplines working together in the company to make sure that at the end of your sprint, you have everything in place to go into production. And that's a big thing. So if you want to ask me, the first trend that's coming, and it's becoming more important, is that you have to be able as a corporate to work agile. So corporate integration, corporate agility is step number one. And that will take more and more change. You can see companies already moving to this a process, but so many companies are now, let's say, let's call it Agile 1.0, 2.0, I don't know, but in an Agile phase where they are, having in an IT department a lot of teams working, producing well, better quality, but still the process from, okay, now on the IT department, things are done, and how do we get this into the production? That is still a struggle. Once every 3 months, the example I just gave, once every year, that's the thing that you can't allow yourself anymore. So the corporate agile for me is the first trend to go. Now, if you want to work corporate agile, you change the paradigms, and paradigms will change in terms of how do we work together, interact together, and who are involved and responsible in any kind of development process. And that's a different situation. And the different situation is coming from the fact that you have roles that change. We don't have the silo set of work that we do. We become multidisciplined, to work as, Agile is about going from individual tasks to team delivery, where it becomes much less important who does what, as long as the team gets it done. And to be able to do that, instead of having your silo set of work as an individual professional, you're going to, a set of activities that you can do, like, for example, within the definition of done, to serve your team to get things into done, to stop starting and start finishing. That requires a change in the profile of people. It requires, if you have a different profile, a different way of recruiting. It requires different ways of, for example, rewarding. Like I just said, bonuses. If you have bonuses, how does it work if you stick to the individual level? Because if you have a team of 8 people working, and everyone has his own individual bonus with individual targets, you can see that the team objective is not the same as every individual. It's not the sum of the individuals. So we have an issue there, and that's coming to the second trend, in my opinion, that we will go for in not just 2018, but that will be important and subject to a really serious change, is the way we do human resource management. Someone said to me, the first thing we have to do is we have to stop calling people human resources. Just the word, just the phrase is dramatic. Now, from that perspective, coming back to the trends of 2018, there might be more. I can also talk about technology and the need for, really, good CI/CD and automated testing and so on. But I think in general, the most important one is, if you want to get the agile benefits as a corporate, and that's what you need to be future-proof, I think the first one is corporate agility. Being able, as a whole, big or small, to deliver, really to do the full delivery to the market. So as a corporate, you can benefit. So that's one. And to be able to make that happen, you have to really change things inside your company. Decision-making processes, collaboration processes, documentation, reporting, etc. And that will include also a lot of changes in the world of HR, and that's for me the second trend. So these are my statements for now. At the moment we are at 144 participants, I see. So I would say, if anyone has a question or a thing to say, feel free to come in. So I would like to take the opportunity to, while waiting for questions, to dive a little deeper into corporate agility and into agile HR. For me, corporate agility is, you can identify maybe a number of angles to look at it, but I just made a short list of, for me, very important things that really need to change. And the first one is the silos. And with a silo, I mean a professional group, a professional set of people, a department, I don't know, where from one group is coming work in, very often based on remote and written documentation, and from there they do some work with what they get, and it moves on to the next silo. And what I see in agile or so-called agile companies is that we still have a lot of silos. So the first one is, how can you fix in your organization that we don't do after development this extra sprint for test, or this extra sprint for integration, or this extra sprint for whatever. So that's the first one, breaking down the silos. So breaking, if you look at trend number one for me, the corporate agility, it means that if you want to achieve this from an agile transformation perspective, from agile coach perspective, if you are a scrum master, if you are responsible in an organization for specific deliveries, is making sure that you break down the silos. Why? Agile is about avoiding delay. You want to be in the market earlier than before, sooner. You want to speed up. And every silo, which means you that go step by step, and it also means that you can go. Sometimes you have to go back because of changes or disagreements, right? So you want to take the silos out.
So there's one question, or there are several questions coming in.
Okay.
Is agile just a trend or a hype, or is it going to stay?
Let's take that one first. Well, I know, to be honest, I'm a little bit deformed, maybe doing this since 1994. At the same time, I can say when we wrote the manifesto, every one of us was already working for a number of years very consciously in a different way. And let's say that everyone did it around the mid-90s. So it's like 25 years old that a whole lot of people started working in a different way. And remember, they have their history from other work. And there are studies that say the first sets of so-called agile work depend from the late 20s. So in the previous century. The manifesto was written in 2001. And then you can say, is it a hype? Well, I think if something is around for 20 years, it's not a hype or a trend. It has a huge boost at the moment. And I think the boost is coming from the fact that the pace of innovation, technology innovation, is going so fast and is changing business models so dramatically that if you are not able to respond to the change, and that's what Agile brings, if you're not able to respond to the change, and if you don't become agile to keep that capability to respond very fast, you're out. It takes a couple of years and you're out. So is it a trend? Maybe it is. It's debatable. Will it stay? Oh, for sure, because you have to. The long decision-making process, the long design processes, they simply don't work. By the time you're at the end of that just design process, that decision-making process, changes are there. And your competition, if you're late, that's fine, but your competition will be on time. So agility is a need. It makes you future-proof. It's maybe just a one-liner, but I think that's the reason. I'm convinced that that's the reason why Agile will stay. 5 years from now or 10 years from now, we don't call it Agile anymore. It's just the way you're thinking. It's Agile. For sure, Agile has become embedded in our own paradigms, like sequential, traditional, or waterfall approaches are the paradigms at the moment. I hope it answers your question. I don't know, but that's for me the situation.
Okay, now we've got a live question from Leo Castro. He is unmuted right now, so you can ask your question, Leo. Leo Castro, go ahead.
I hear a voice.
Yeah, I don't.
Far away. Maybe you can hear something else.
Okay, I'll go for somebody else. Yeah. Oh. So Felipe Oliveira.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'll. Yes. Go ahead, Felipe.
So hi, this is Felipe. I'm talking from Brazil. A bit far away from you guys. So I was wondering, a lot of people in Brazil talk about things like mindset changing, about cultural changing, and something that we call a buzzword that is agile transformation. And that has become agile a buzzword. And I'd like to know, since we're talking about culture change and people change, and this is something a little bit intangible. How can we measure how much a team or a company has changed if this is something that looks like a little more intangible, that because we're talking about people?
Yeah, okay, so although there are many models, you know, the agile transformation is about changing the paradigms, and that's really difficult. And the point is, you can change models for HR, and you can change models for decision making, but still, you know, you can, if the mindset is not in there, it's really difficult. But there are maturity models that you can use. Over time, I developed myself an approach for agile transformations, really focused on changing the paradigms in the organization. And of course, there's a maturity model in there that helps. And you can make it some sort of tangible. Okay, where are we in terms of maturity? And the maturity is focusing on the mindset, right? The way you do the assessment, what the assessors are looking for is things that are proof of the mindset. And I think one of the angles that you can take in that process is in the organization, how do things take place? How does it work? How does this decision making work? How does reporting work? How does work coming into teams? How is work coming out of teams? How is acceptance taking place? That kind of thing. You use the word mindset, Felipe, and mindset this is a sneaky one, right? Mindset is you cannot grab it. The mindset. You can only see it, in the way people are responding, and that's coming back to the paradigms. And the point is, a lot of us are infected by the old paradigms, and changing paradigms is very difficult, especially if you're in the transformation process to get into the new paradigms. For how do we communicate? How do we hand over information? How do we report? Those kind of things. The point is, you're in a change, and in a change, things go wrong. And if something goes wrong, what we do is, without consciously even being aware, is we step back in what we used to do. So we step back into the old paradigms. And the moment that you can see organizations that, when it's getting tough, they, instead of stepping back into the old traditional models, they try to find a way forward, to still stick to, okay, can we get better business value earlier with a better internal quality? Then you have some evidence, tangible evidence of an agile maturity on the mindset level. And that takes an assessment, not just by looking into asking people, but being there in the teams and see how it works, including in the vertical of an organization and in the horizontal of an organization. I don't know, Felipe, if it answers your question.
Yes, it does. It does actually, because it's very important for me that a lot of people say about changes in mindset and culture, but it's really important to show people, because when you go to, I don't know, for the C-level of the company, CEO, CTO,
yeah,
them about it.
This is the point. And thank you for bringing that phrase.
Talking to me about a mindset, but how can I measure? Give me a number, and that's nice to have something to provide.
What I would like to emphasize, because you bring up the C-level, very often I meet management teams, C-level teams, and they perceive agile working as someone in the horizontal, where the work is done, and they can still, demonstrate their old school behavior. But the point is, if you as a C-level still role model old school behavior, you will get old school behavior from the horizontal. So the agile mindset, changing paradigms, bureaucracy, decision-making process, empowering people, you have to start it at the top. So in the assessment, check there as well. It's extremely important. So for me, if you do an assessment, it's looking at what I call organizational competencies, and they're not agile competencies, but they are competencies that facilitate agile working, and you can measure them.
Okay, we'll go to the next question from Umberto Aranda. Umberto, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, hello. I just want to know if it is more efficient working with Agile rather than a PMP model in the IT sector, because sometimes we are asked to not to follow all the process of the PMP model. Is it better working with Agile instead for IT projects, IT or telecom projects?
Yeah, okay. Again, I'm sort of deformed, but to be very honest, in IT, where you have a high pace of innovation based on technology, where you are servicing. I think IT, let's call it technology, is in every professional domain at the moment. It means that you have to, this is impacting every organization, wherever you are, in every department, whatever you do. And this is where the capability to respond very fast, much faster than in the past, is a matter of survival. So I think whatever you do, the concept of Agile is in any kind of project beneficial. And in the world of IT, where we know it's impossible to define upfront in detail solutions, it's a necessity. So I would say whatever you do, leading should be the Agile concept. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Then we have a question coming in via the chat from Deb Gosh. Companies are mixing various frameworks to go agile, say Spotify and so on. What do you suggest for leadership to keep in mind while taking this kind of copied approach?
Yeah. Okay. I would like to refer to agnosticagile.org. Just go and read it. And in a one-liner, I can say is never stick to one single agile method. There are so many agile best practices from people around the globe, and some of them are written down in books and on websites, and some are not yet even, but they're very beneficial. And again, if it comes back to better business value, delivering in an earlier stage with a better internal quality, do so. I like to use the phrase agile stack, where you're given on the objectives that you have in the improvement that you are looking for in your working, or when you go into agile working. You can identify a set of agile practices that really help. And I think, for example, the daily, which I think the first one everyone in the agile environment will know, has been defined in, I don't know, at least 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different agile methods. And it's called the daily achievement meeting, the daily stand-up, the daily scrum. I don't know. So you see that those practices are in different various frameworks. I would like to make a drawing, if it's okay with you. I hope you can see this one. I always like to make, I'm not much of an artist, to be honest, but let's call this one, let's say this is an umbrella, right? So I don't know if you can see it. If you can see, yes, you can see it a little. Oh. And then you can say, okay, if you want to work agile, where is the focus? And the focus can be large group or corporate, or can be on team, and can be on the individual or pairs, or very very small groups. And you can also check, for example, what are you looking for? Are you looking for quality? Are you looking for efficiency? Are you looking for value? And from that perspective, if you look then at the agile domain, you can say, okay, if we do it like this, where are we heading for? And then you can say, okay, again, using various frameworks, you can say, okay, if I have a large group, using looking for a lot of value, for example, the agile project management framework is a really relevant one. In teams and efficiency, for me, Scrum is very much leading. If you look at the smaller teams, and you look for quality, for example, extreme programming brings a lot of quality. Large group efficiency, what about lean, or etc. So I just, with this, without even trying to be complete, I just want to say that there are so many agile practices, and depending on what you are looking for, use them. and improve. People say, oh, we're going to implement Agile, we use method ABC, we're going to implement it, that's how we work. And I always say, identify the practices, identify your Agile stack, go work. And if I come back to your organization 6 months from now, and you still work the same way, I have a concern. Because if everything is okay, you do every 2 weeks your retrospective, and you improve. And after 6 months, there have been a number of improvements have been implemented, and you don't work in the same way anymore that you did 6 months before. And as long as you stay, within the ideas and the values and the principles of the manifesto to look for the benefits of Agile, delivering better business value earlier with a better internal quality, it's fine and it helps. So never stick to one. I think there's only one dogma in the Agile world, and that's don't use dogmas, right? Use whatever you can, try and move forward instead of backward. I hope it answers your question.
All right, then we've got another one via chat, and then I'll go to the live questions again from Jason Joseph. If not human resources, so this is really coming back to a point you made before, if not human resources, what will we call people? This is crucial as it describes how we use people in a new Agile area. Thank you in advance, Jay.
Yeah, how do we call people? I don't know. Let's start with people. I think that's a good idea. I like the video of Daniel Pink when he talks about human motivation, autonomy, mastery, purpose, and he's doing the voiceover, and where someone says to a manager, "Hey, I'm not a horse," and I think that's what it is. People are people, and treat them this way. And people means that they have their own motivations. You can't squeeze them into a standard. You have to facilitate people to get the best out of them. And in this people, the word people, individual, and in the team context, that's the most important one. So I suggest let's call them people.
Okay. We'll go to the question from Shadrach Awusu. He is now, he's still muted. So Shadrach will go to somebody else. Oh, Shadrach is now, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, hi everyone, speaking from Ghana. Agile is quite new in our country, so I wanted to be quite sure of the high value of it to me, let's say as a project manager in the real estate industry.
Okay, I didn't get the question. Can you repeat?
I want to find out which of the Agile models would help me in my project management profession in the real estate industry.
Is there any kind of models or frameworks that help you in your role as a project manager? That's the question, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, again, I think there are many practices at the moment that you can use, but if you go back, there's a very nice book from Jim Highsmith. Jim is one of the other authors of the Agile Manifesto. And I think it's called the Agile Ecosystems, something like this. And he described the 13 methods that would represent it when we wrote the manifesto. And one of them is DSDM. So you have a lot of methods and practices written down in the book, short, so that you can really have an overview. What I would like to recommend to you, because one of the problems is that you very often see is, okay, we want to do an development and MVP, but how do we get to this backlog that really is, and then we have a very efficient and agile development process, but building the backlog is time consuming. And I think if you can speed it up in a very agile way, and if you have a big full delivery backlog and you can have teams really working integrated, then you get, as a project manager or whatever you call yourself, you can go to better business value in an earlier stage. And then the Agile Project Management Framework, a lot of practice from that can help you as well. But if I look at, for example, an Agile transformation, which is for me also project oriented, it's like written down here. There are so many practices that so for me, for example, working with the extreme, some of the extreme programming practices is is almost a standard. I like the pairing and the refactoring and test driven. I use them all the time, and it's even working in a project environment. So I just would like to invite you to start somewhere and to go to a lot of conferences or webinars like this and read and go into the community and find what helps you, because somewhere, somehow you will run into someone who has a brilliant idea that will help you in your role as a project manager. But the fundament, to get from scratch, absolute zero, where a client says, I have an issue, until delivery, the Agile Project Management Framework helps. Within the Agile Project Management Framework, you can use, I always use extreme programming practices, for example. I always use lean and Kanban practices. So it's up to you what you think that helps you best. Does it help? Is it an answer to your question?
Yeah, I think we lost him, but
Okay.
yeah, all right. We'll take another question from the chat. From Mary Linian, are there any opportunities for Agile coaches going forward with the future blockchain has to offer?
Yeah, I think so. I'm convinced. The point is, coming back to the Agile coach, and I don't know exactly who is asking and where you are living, but wherever I go across the globe, I meet Agile coaches. What I see is that a lot of Agile coaches know a whole lot about Agile, but not so much about coaching. And that's a very important factor for sustainability of the change. And blockchain is another conceptual change of how to perceive things. And for me, it emphasizes again that the coaching skills of a coach are so important. So if you say, okay, I'm an Agile coach at the moment, I don't know where you are in your profile exactly, but keep on evolving in the area of agile practices. Like I gave the previous answer, there are so many Agile practices. Never stop learning about them. At the same time, continuously develop on your interpersonal skills and your coaching skills, because they will make the difference in how sustainable the change that you bring into teams or management is. And I cannot predict exactly what the impact will be, but I know it will be huge, but not how huge, is the technology. And the more you understand about technology and where technology can bring you as a company, as an organization, as a corporate, as you understand that as a coach, that will make you more powerful. At the moment, I meet the blockchain concept, where the impact of technology is so huge. It's becoming bigger and bigger. In technology, as I said before, innovation and change is huge and will become only faster. So the agility and therefore the sustainability of the change is very important. And I see at the moment organizations struggling, to become really agile, and that's not because of the lack of Agile practices, because we have enough, but it's about being able to let go old paradigms and replace them by new paradigms, and that's where the quality of the coach comes in. So there is a huge way to go for Agile coaches across the globe, I guess.
Okay.
And it's related to blockchain because of technology, but even without bringing that word up, there's still a huge development process to go. I don't know if it's answering the question, but
all right, thanks. Then we have a question from Mark Kouwenhoven. What is your view on design thinking and Agile?
For me, design thinking and co-creation, it's like Agile itself. I meet people that say, hey, when you talk about it like this, that's how I've been working or tried to work all my life, but I just didn't call it Agile. And I think with design thinking and co-creation, it's the same thing. Especially, I think for design thinking, building the backlog should be part of the concept, and it goes all the way into the delivery sprints, because you're never done. You know, when you go into the delivery sprints, still you're subject to change. So you have to keep that thinking open, and the co-creation from beginning to end is there as well, because co-creation for me means that the one who is making it is working with the one who is needing it very closely, because it's the synergy of their skills and expertise that bring the best value. And if you bring that together in a proper agile way, again, you avoid delay. So for me, they should be totally embedded in your agile approach. So bring in the practices that allow you to work in an agile way and to combine it with design thinking and co-creation.
Okay. We've got a question coming in from Fabian Appel. What about audit requirements, specifically in regards complete requirements, test procedure, handover of elements, documentation, and future change management?
Okay, so actually, I was talking this morning about audits and audit processes, and what I know from the past in the audits that I've been, and I've not done a lot, maybe like, I don't know, 8 to 10 audits that I've been involved in. Those audits are focusing on, so what you want to do is with an audit, okay, so we agreed to work in a certain way, did we do so? And the old school audit is very much focusing on, in the sequential process, you deliver half products, and at the end there's a final product, and we check the half products, and then if they are according to standards and templates, then then the job is well done. If you want to audit an agile environment, because agile is an interaction concept, you make or break agile with having the right people talking the right time about the right stuff in the right way. And that's process based. So for me, audits in agile environments are very much focusing on the process, not on products. Because if you do the process well, the product will be high quality. If you look at, sometimes people say, I'm working in the pharmaceutical environment, I'm working in the medical environment, I'm working in the aviation, and by law we have to do. See if you can bring the aspects that the audits are looking for, and then maybe it might even be the law, right? Because the law says, bring it into a definition of done, bring it into the agile development process, and make sure that your team is able to cover, not in a silo, because that's very often happening in the traditional ways, but from the multidisciplinary way, that your team is able to deliver what is needed. And it might be a little bit more time, but don't let you be seduced into staying into old traditional sequential processes, because in the past audits have designed those output of audits has designed those processes. It's time to change into this, and it can be done. We are doing agile transformations in the pharmaceutical industry as well, etc. So it can be done, but it takes time, and it takes in the vertical a lot of commitment to change bureaucracy and to change decision-making processes, and especially handover of information. Handover of information is a disaster when we do it remote and written. Agile is about face-to-face communication, right? And any kind of communication that you do remote and written brings distortion. And what you want also, from audit perspective, you want to achieve quality, right? So if you can take out the distortion, you're only serving the value of the corporate, so you bring better value. And if it means that you have to step away from remote and written communication into face-to-face, also for handing over information, that's the way to go. It doesn't mean that you don't document. That's another discussion. But it's how you document and why you document that changes. I don't know if it's answering the question.
All right. I think so. Thank you. Michel Burini from France is asking the following question. I would like to have Arie's vision on testing practices in a context where several agile teams have to consider working together. according to the integration approach of their respective sprints into a customer's environment?
Okay, testing practices. My first statement is that if you look at testing, as much as possible, you have to automate. You have to, you know, in an agile environment, if you start working, you do an initial delivery. You know, let's say you do for an MVP, you do 4 sprints or 5, I don't care. And you have one team working, just one team of 5, 6, 7, 8 people. I think the first delivery sprint you can test by hand, and maybe the second, but already in the third sprint you have to make a choice. What do I test and what do I not test? And I think this is where automated testing already becomes very important. Then you are working in parallel with 3, 4, 5 teams working. You're delivering all your own stuff, and it has to talk together, right? So from that perspective, you know, you should even, you know, make sure that you have your automated testing in place before you go into the, you know, the delivery sprints. And for me, doing this has a 100% need for test-driven development. So good tools, professionals who know how to handle those tools for automated testing and integration, and making sure that you work test-driven development. I don't know if it answers the question, but for me, that's the start. And there's a whole lot more to say, I think, about this, but that's where it starts. And not all organizations are ready to do automated testing completely. And maybe you never do it 100%, but hey, it should be, you know, where you start if you do software deliveries in sprints, automated testing, and continuous integration that you do in an automated level. You know, very strong, skilled developers that make that happen are essential.
All right. Then we have, there are lots of questions coming in again. Pim Kuiper, to change into the agile way to work, does it need to go in one time, like a revolution, or are there any ways to do this more smoothly, step by step, e.g. by department?
Yeah. Okay. There's a couple of things to say about it. I think if an organization is in trouble, disruptive change is easier accepted. If a company is, I was talking to, in another country, I'm living in the Netherlands, in another country in Europe, to an organization. It was about, you know, being able to respond, and they said, why should we be agile? Because we're number one in our, you know, in our professional domain. I said, well, maybe you should become agile, or, you know, to stay number one. So that's in general, and everyone has to go that path, you know, to get the capability to respond. Now, the point I want to make is, if you have an organization, you want to change paradigms in the vertical, in the horizontal. A lot of things change: bureaucracy, decision-making processes, people profile. People have to adjust, you know, etc. So that's complex. And the moment that you have pain, you can do, you know, disruptive. And you can go, you know, large group at one go. And if you don't have pain as an organization, you might take it step by, you know, baby steps. You go forward. I do have to say that even if you take baby steps, you should find a way to get through the change process within, you know, even if you're a big organization, I talk like 100,000 people or more, one year and a half. That's you know, 2 years, and then it's like, as an organization, getting your driver's license. You know, when people get at least in the Netherlands, you know, when you get your driver's license, you had a lot of training, and finally, you know, you're allowed on the road, you know, to do your own thing. But that's the moment where the paradigms are not yet in. So at the end of a transformation process, very often the paradigms are not yet, the new paradigms are not yet sustained. So go into a change, either with baby steps or disruptive and very fast. But understand that once you've changed the organization, it needs a lot of follow-up to make sure that the changes are sustainable, because the paradigms are not yet really replaced, the old paradigms, by the new ones. A lot of teams might struggle. You know, agile is new, so I do it for the first time. they have a little trouble, and what they will do is they step back into the old situation. And you need people that keep them sharp and make sure, no, you have to move forward, within the agile values and the principles and all the practices available. Don't step back into the old rituals. So both ways, baby steps and disruptive change are an option depending on the situation. I do have a strong preference for disruptive change myself, and come in with a group of coaches and understanding that it's really difficult for people that you take by the hand, but then the coaches will make them to help them to overcome the real big change.
All right. Thank you. I get a thank you here. Laura Wixera is asking a question about the education. So do you think it's possible to transfer agile practices to the other context, such as school context, addressed to students working in groups, and addressed to teachers working together? Thank you very much in advance.
Yeah, I think for me personally, agile is applicable in every professional domain. So also in the world of education. Then you have two areas. It's like HR. You have, okay, so we have all this agile stuff that HR has to take care of, like development of people, individuals, teams in an agile way. But HR has to work agile themselves as well. Same thing in an educational environment. You can teach students what agile is all about. You can facilitate them working in teams and work in an agile way, but also the team of teachers and professors has to work in an agile way. And I have to be very honest, I've been actively involved in the world of education in the Netherlands for 20 years, connected to 3 universities of applied sciences. And I don't know about the rest of the world, but the world of education is not really one that's open to change. It takes a lot of effort and time. And in the 20 years, I've been continuously struggling with the fact that there was a lot of stuff that was, part of the curriculum and was old school, not needed anymore. So I think in general, it would benefit if in the world of education, people work agile, but also it's needed to stay connected to what the market is asking for. Your capability of being able to respond to the demand of the market.
All right. We've got a short question about from Fati. What about end-to-end testing in the agile approach?
Go, go, go. That's all I can say.
All right.
This is what I said. If especially if you're in the world of software delivery, test-driven development is leading. Make sure that you have your test ready and that things get over and over tested. So yeah, there's only one thing to say: go.
All right, and then maybe it would be interesting for the last 5 minutes to talk about the remaining trends in 2018 for agile working.
Wow, you want to know more trends?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I mentioned the corporate agile to deliver really the corporate value. The second one is HR, and in my opinion, what we just talked about, technology becomes more and more relevant. So maybe is it a trend? I don't know, because it's so flat in your face, right? But to be honest, the role of technology becomes so important. I would say that, let's call it a trend, but that's the one that needs. So coming back to one of the questions before, as an agile coach, blockchain, yeah, that area, understanding technology and what it does, and also having people who can implement it and design and develop an architecture that facilitates it all, that makes you able to respond, right? So that's I don't like to mention 20 hypes and trends for 2018, but corporate HR and technology in terms of tooling facilitating the agile process, that's for me the third one.
All right. Then we still have time for another question, I think. Coming from Wolfgang, how does Agile work outside IT in the transformation knowledge projects in companies?
Okay, to be very honest, Wolfgang, for me, the whole debate about Agile is outside the world of IT has never been a debate. Because even in my first commercial projects, we delivered products and services for the client. Yes, there was software development in there, but there was also education and training, and there was also we call it administrative organization, and they have nothing to do with software development, but you develop stuff, right? In the Netherlands, since I think over 5 years at the moment, Agile in the world of marketing, where the dynamics are very high, is extremely important. And if you want to deliver corporate value to the market, everyone has to work Agile, everyone. So it's not just ITs, and it's coming back to read the manifesto, replace the word software by solutions, and apply all the things that are there, and you can transform things that are, because I know that a lot of stuff has an origin in IT, but still, you can easily transfer them to the line of work where you're in. That's why people in the marketing area are very successful doing it, but also in coaching, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. Even for extreme programming practices are even applicable for an Agile coach in their coaching practices. So yeah, it's just have an open mind and go and sit down and see, okay, those practices, they work in software development. Can they also work in, if I am developing a huge marketing event, and I have epics and stories in there, can I as a team with develop roles and test roles and analytical roles, can we do the stuff? Yeah, we can. So it works, and that's the way I've been thinking and working from day one, actually, because full delivery was always there for me. So Wolfgang, a big yes.
All right, I think we still have time for one question. It's a little bit in line with the question coming from Shadrach from Ghana. So how can we be able to transform the waterfall model to Agile model in a short time? How can we start our work if we are totally new to Agile?
Okay, there was a previous question about the disruptive or not, etc. And the only recommendation I can give is, so what you basically ask is, okay, how can we change? How can we transform from traditional way of working to the Agile way of working? Now, if there's not yet a lot of commitment in your organization for Agile working, if there's not a lot of need for Agile working, people think, identify pilots where you can grab a team, you can train the team and start working for a while in an Agile way. What you have to understand, if you do it like this, is that most likely you will make mistakes because you do things for the very first time. It's all new to you. So if you can find help, Agile trainers, Agile coaches, that can really help you to overcome the paradigms and accept that in this process, you will make mistakes. And the good news is from every mistake, you will learn. Create a transformation roadmap. Do an assessment, create a transformation roadmap, and go with your teams. It's a very short answer, I know, for a very complex question.
All right. Thank you so much. We're at the top of the hour.
You're welcome.
And thank you very much for your time. It was a great session. And yeah, we will close the webinar and we will send the recording to everyone that attended the webinar.
Let me, Simone, take the opportunity to thank everyone who is still listening, because we're still 180 people, 19 people online. So I would like to thank everyone who stayed so long, and maybe until next time. See you then.
Thanks.